The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, Lord.
A man came, sent by God. His name was John. He came as a witness to speak for the light, so that everyone might believe through him. He was not the light, only a witness to speak for the light. This is how John appeared as a witness. When the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, "Who are you?" he not only declared, but he declared quite openly, "I am not the Christ." "Well then," they asked, "are you Elijah?" "I am not," he said. "Are you the prophet?" He answered, "No." So they said to him, "Who are you?" "We must take back an answer to those who sent us. What have you to say about yourself?" So John said, "I am, as Isaiah prophesied, a voice that cries in the wilderness, 'Make a straight way for the Lord.'" Now these men had been sent by the Pharisees, and they put this further question to him: "Why are you baptizing if you are not the Christ, and not Elijah, and not the prophet?" John replied, "I baptize with water, but there stands among you, unknown to you, the one who is coming after me, and I am not fit to undo his sandal strap." This happened at Bethany, on the far side of the Jordan, where John was baptizing. The Gospel of the Lord. Gaudete Sunday, Rejoice Sunday. To help us to get into that kind of mood, one of the traditions that we recently have introduced in our parishes here in Erskine is that this is Christmas Jumper Sunday, that we all wear our Christmas jumpers. So I hope today that as you gather with us, you've got your Christmas jumper on. And I want evidence of that. So if you go to our website, catholicerskine.website, there is a dedicated page where you can upload pictures of yourself with your Christmas jumper on, and we want to see the evidence. If you can remember to last week's Gospel, you'll be aware that this week's Gospel repeats much of what we heard last week. John the Baptist preaching in the wilderness, a quote from Isaiah citing John as a voice crying in the wilderness. John's claim that his baptism would be superseded by one who would come after him. As a preacher, I'm tempted to say, so go to our YouTube channel and look at last week's homily, and that will save me the bother. But I don't want to do that. You'll be disappointed. But there are so many important differences between this account we hear from John's Gospel and the account we heard last week from Mark's Gospel. Today, we don't hear anything about John's diet of locusts and wild honey or about his bad dress sense. The most striking difference between last week and this week, however, is the way that John's witness is given. We hear that John's witness is in response to a series of questions given by the religious leaders who come to him asking one question after another. "Who are you?" "I am not the Christ." "Are you Elijah?" "No." "Are you the prophet?" "No." "Who are you then? Let us give an account to those who sent us." The biggest difference between last week and this is that John the Baptist discloses who he is because he is being interrogated. These are the first questions, and there are 6 of them in a gospel that is full of questions. In John's gospel, every episode seems to be framed by a poignant question which sets the tone. Soon after this section, we hear Nathanael ask, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" Jesus asks his mother at the wedding feast at Cana, "Woman, what do you want of me?" Nicodemus will ask Jesus at night, "How can someone be born again?" The crowds will ask, "How can this man give us his flesh to eat?" Judas offers this humdinger, "Why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and the money given to the poor?" Pilate will ask some very famous questions. "Shall I crucify your king? Truth, what is that?" Peter is asked 3 times, "Aren't you one of this man's disciples?" And after the resurrection, Jesus will ask him 3 times, "Do you love me?" Questions, questions, questions. The gospel is framed by questions. And questions really matter, because the wrong question sets us off in the wrong direction. The right questions allow us to dig deeply into an issue and invite us to an honest exploration. The best questions connect us to the deepest longings in our lives. Questions that John the Baptist heard did that for him. When the leaders came to him and said, "Who are you? Are you Elijah? Are you the prophet?" they were not just asking to see John's identity card. They were seeking how they should connect him to the history of Israel, which went back for centuries. They wanted to see if this prophet saw himself in line with the other prophets of Israel. Eventually, John does blurt it out, "I am a voice that cries in the wilderness, make a straight way for the Lord." He is, of course, quoting the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah has been read throughout Advent, and it's the first reading of our Mass today. Isaiah gives us over and over again these amazing visions of a world that might be. He spoke to a people who were suffering terribly. It must have been odd when John the Baptist quoted Isaiah, because his people were suffering too. The mighty words spoken by Isaiah and John the Baptist remind me of one of the saddest quotes I've ever heard. "I now see my life as a story of our mighty vision given to someone too weak to use it." The question for us during these days of Advent is this: are the visions that Isaiah gives us given to a people too weak to use them? Or can we hear these visions and let them guide us? Some of Isaiah's visions are remarkable. A holy mountain where all conflict will be ended, where traditional enemies, lambs and lions, will lie down together. And we hear that vision when many parts of our world are involved in terrible wars. But many of us live our lives as though this is not even happening. Isaiah proclaims another mighty vision: freedom for captives. Yet, do you know that among northern European countries, the most recent figures, which were in 2018, show that Scotland has a higher imprisonment rate, prisoners per 100,000 of the population, than all of its nearby neighbours? Isaiah also announces relief from crippling debt. Think of the many households steeped in debt, and how many will go deeper into debt over this Christmas. You know, we're all incredibly grateful at this time when we now seem to have a vaccine for COVID. But at the same time, the People's Vaccine Alliance reports that rich countries are hoarding doses of vaccine, and people living in poor countries are set to miss out. The UK is the 5th richest nation on the planet, yet our government has decided to cut back on its commitment to the poorest countries of our world. Visions like these invite us to absolute honesty in answering the questions they raise. What fears narrow our focus so that we act selfishly instead of behalf of the common good? What kind of ambition makes us impatient and spiteful of others who disagree with us? But also on this Gaudete Sunday, Rejoice Sunday, what allows us to rejoice unself-consciously like the children God calls us to be? Of course, these questions fall not only on us as individuals, but on our church, our country, and our planet. Why does the state of our politics so disappoint us? What makes it difficult for us to wrestle with serious problems as serious people? Instead, we just stand on top of a problem and shout about it. Why are we so easily distracted by relatively unimportant things? Sporting events, the cult of celebrities, social media. Our attention gets captivated by things that take it away from the serious things that we really do need to face, like the way that we're living on our planet. The mighty vision of Isaiah, echoed by John the Baptist, summon us to something else, to the serious effort to build a holy mountain and to free captives, to release people from indebtedness, to forge a new world made new. Let's not complain that we have been given a mighty vision that we are too weak to use. Let us use these mighty visions. Let us welcome our Saviour with the right spirit, a spirit that undertakes to forge the vision of the world He lived and died for. That we will be able to welcome Him on Christmas morning with the right kind of rejoicing. A rejoicing that we find ourselves participating in an ancient vision made new again.